You're gonna have to forgive me. The seal. Oh yeah. So on the very front, yeah. So yeah, it shouldn't be sealed until we give you the thumbs up. All of the sheets. Yeah. It's just it's a record keeping thing for us. Okay. I got you.
Hey, Amanda, and Faustine, and Myrna.
Hi, everybody.
Okay.
Oh, here's everybody.
Yeah, I think I'm finally in as well.
Hi, Amanda. Look at that fancy backdrop Britain has.
Decided to try out new historic photos of downtown Georgetown.
Very good point, Catherine.
That's nice. Very
Isn't this
nice.
great? This is from the 1977 National Register nomination form for the Courthouse Square National Register Historic District. And so this is what's now the Art Center, but it's the old City Hall and fire station, still with the bell on top. You can just barely see it with the way the photo fits the Zoom screen. And then the vehicles are my favorite part of this photo.
Oh, yes, yes, they're great. What year was that photo?
1977.
Oh, we used to drive those cars, you know.
I mean, this is all quite wonderful. I don't think I would like this photo so much if this were from if this were in color. So,
Well, I'll bet you Art had a car like that.
Yeah, you're pretty close. Had a 64. Yes.
Well, she said this picture's from the 70s. So yes, my first car was a 64 something or other, Ford Falcon, I think.
But mine was an Impala.
Oh, much bigger. Yes.
Well, I was 2 years old when that picture was taken.
Yeah, right, Amanda.
Well, good for you, Amanda.
And Britain wasn't born.
Britain wasn't born, right?
I'm not speaking to this.
Not sure if Nat was born either.
58 Volkswagen Bug.
Oh, yes. Well,
That was your first?
Well, actually, that was my second car. I bought a Volkswagen while living in Germany in 1966.
But that was a good time.
Oh, it was an original Bug.
And living in Germany in 66, I bet.
Oh, it was wonderful too. Yes.
Yeah.
It was my second time.
Awesome. I just gave to my sister my 1958 Triumph 3A, which was
Oh my
incredible.
gosh.
Eesh. What a wonderful brother.
She's paying for it.
So you sold it to her, you didn't give it to her.
Yes. Well, it's a family heirloom, and that's like we give it we exchange it for a few dollars across.
Oh, right. Well, is it actually driven? Is it
Yeah.
maintained? It's drivable.
Yeah, and she has a 16-year-old, and so
Ah,
it was my mom's car, and so we felt right and just that she have her 16-year-old drive it.
right.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I remember dating somebody who had a 57 T-Bird convertible.
Awesome.
Now, Brittany, you see when you started this trip down memory lane?
That's
Yeah.
the whole point. That's why I
It's
do this.
beautiful.
You just wait till next time. It's gonna be great. Actually, I keep disappearing a little bit. So is this weird, or are y'all okay with it? Because I can just go to my normal office background. and
Oh,
not-
it's
A ghost.
okay. You just look like you're a ghost, you know,
Okay.
because
Yeah,
you
it's
have that
appropriate
sort
for
of
the Halloween.
outline.
We're in October, and so the combination of the lighting in my desk area and in the black and white background is a little weird, but I think y'all are used to me at this point.
Okay, so I see everybody. I don't see Commissioner Johnston. Do we know if he's joining us this evening?
I think Myrna, only thing we got was Mr. McCabe was not joining us tonight.
Okay. And then is Pam joining us for the conversation, even though we have a quorum tonight?
I didn't receive any other responses that
Oh.
they were showing.
She just showed up.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Hi, Pam. Okay. All right. Anything else we need to do, or are we ready to begin? Okay. All right. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Okay. Good evening. The time is 6:01 p.m. I'm Amanda Parr, the chair of the Historic and Architectural Review Commission, and I would like to welcome everyone to our meeting of the City of Georgetown Historic and Architectural Review Commission. The Historic and Architectural Review Commission, appointed by the mayor and the city council, is responsible for hearing and taking final action on applications for certificates of appropriateness based upon the city council adopted downtown and old town design guidelines and the Unified Development Code. This virtual meeting format is different from the regular meetings at City Hall, but we will still follow a similar meeting format. We will consider the cases scheduled for this meeting individually as follows. Staff will make a presentation of the case, and then I will give the commissioners an opportunity to ask questions to staff. After the staff presentation, the applicant or their representative will have up to 10 minutes to present or provide comments on their project if they choose, followed by questions from the commissioners. Once staff and the applicant have addressed questions from the commissioners, we will open the meeting for the public hearing. If you would like to provide comments on the agenda item, please wait until I open the public hearing. When I open the public hearing, I will ask if anyone would like to speak, and if you would, please unmute yourself and state your name. Once we have the name of everyone who would like to speak, I will call the names in order. When your name is called, you will have up to 3 minutes. A speaker may allot their time to another speaker for a maximum of 6 minutes. If you wish to allot your time to another speaker, please indicate so when I open the public hearing. Please remember that all comments and questions must be addressed to the commission, and please be patient while we organize the speakers during the public hearing portion. You also have the opportunity to provide comments through the Q&A section of the meeting located on the right-hand side of your screen. Please provide your full name and address for the record, and your comment will be read by staff. After everyone who has asked to speak has spoken, I will close the public hearing and provide a few minutes of rebuttal time to the applicant if they so choose. Following this set of questions, I will ask the commissioners for a motion and a second, followed by deliberation. And any additional questions to staff or to the applicant, then I will call for a vote on the motion. If the applicant or a member of the public has questions or concerns following a vote on an agenda item, please communicate those to the recording secretary outside of this meeting so that staff can follow up with you. You can provide your contact information through the Q&A section and request follow-up. You can call the planning department at 512-930-3575, or you can email historic@georgetown.org. I would like to remind everyone to please state your name before you make any comments. This includes staff, commissioners, applicants, and members of the public who speak during the public comment portion of the meeting. If you are a member of the public, please also provide your address. The first item on the agenda is okay. We have item D, consideration and possible action to approve the minutes from the October 8th, 2020 regular meeting of the Historic and Architectural Review Commission. Do I have any edits or comments to the minutes? Okay, not seeing anyone or hearing anyone, I will accept a motion.
I make a motion, it's Commissioner Morales to approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
This is Carolee Nunn. I make a second.
Thank you. So I have a motion to approve the minutes as written by Catherine Morales and a second by Carolee Nunn. I'll take a vote. Commissioner Parr, approve. Commissioner Curry,
Approve.
Commissioner Morales,
Approve.
Commissioner Browner,
Yes.
Commissioner Nunn,
Approve.
and Commissioner Hyde.
Approve.
Okay, thank you. That motion carries. Okay, moving on to our second agenda item. This is item E. This is a public hearing and possible action on a request for a certificate of appropriateness for new building construction, infill development at the property located at 405 South Austin Avenue, bearing the legal description of 0.7434 acres, being Lot 9, replat of Block 24, City of Georgetown. Britton.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Commissioners. This is Britton Bostick, the Downtown and Historic Planner. This is an application for new building construction, what we also call infill development. And so just to recap for everyone, 2 weeks ago in the regular Harc meeting on October 8th, you all considered this project in a public hearing and then voted to postpone the application to this meeting so that you could have sufficient time to review the material samples provided by the architect and also to have more time to review the revised drawings which had been provided on that Thursday, and so that we could get those posted with the agenda for this meeting. Those things having been accomplished, so we're back here, and so the drawings that I'm going to use tonight are the most up-to-date drawings provided by the architect for this application, and that includes the 3D rendering that I'm showing right now on slide 4. This project is located between East 5th and West 4th and West 5th Streets along South Austin Avenue. We switch from east to west on Main Street out on Austin Avenue. And you can see the property here. It's in the northern part of our downtown overlay district. It's also about a block away from the dividing line between downtown and Old Town. And it's surrounded by some newer areas, some areas that don't have structures at all. We've got parking right across the street. And then we've also got historic structures nearby, including high priority, medium, and low priority. And so I'm going to breeze through what I presented last time unless the commissioners have specific questions, but this is a property that had the same house on it for over 100 years, and it was also in the Glasscock's family ownership. George Glasscock, founder of Georgetown's daughter, Elizabeth, had this house, and then it was owned by her descendants until the 1980s, and then from what I can gather, it was demolished around 1995. And so that's why this lot is vacant today. This is in the MUDT zoning, surrounded by mostly other mixed use downtown, but also we have some residential single family across the street to the north, although that is the county's historic jail property. And then we've also got some office, which is the gray box there in the lower right-hand corner, and then single family residential to the east or to the right of the screen. And that's where our Old Town Historic District is. And so this is on a lot that's platted as a single lot. It was replatted several years ago and has been sitting here. And this is not the first time we've had a development proposed, but this is a development that is proposing to make use of the vacant lot for a bank and office building. So this is proposed to be 3 stories tall. It's proposed to have a banking drive-through that would use the existing driveway on the site for access to that, and then also to provide their own on-site parking. And so this is the most current elevation. This is a change from what was originally proposed. Commissioners, you saw this in a conceptual review about a month ago. Then there was a public hearing 2 weeks ago where these drawings were first presented, and now we're coming back with this drawing. So we see stone proposed for the first floor and also the centers of the facades, and then to have ethos material, which is the stucco coating that would be painted around the second and third floors. And then we've got some decorative elements, a little bit above the first floor and then also around the top. The signage that you see here is kind of illustrative. It's not proposed as part of this application, and so no signage is being approved right now. That'll have to come back at a later date. And so in response to Harc's comments, the applicant had stepped down the height of the building over the drive-through area. They had also adjusted the windows. The window proportions have been changed. And then they've also added some header and kind of windowsill details at these windows on the second and third floors. As we move around to the drive-through, we can see these are the taller, narrower window proportions that we had discussed in the conceptual review. And then here we are on the north elevation, which would be what you see from the parking lot of the development. And so the proposed materials, I hope everyone had a chance to see those. If not, I've got them in a couple of slides, but a cut or cast stone. So the architect had provided a couple of samples, but they are asking for Harc to approve both because they would like some flexibility in final selection of materials. And that's mainly due to cost reasons. There's a cost difference between using a natural limestone and then using a cast stone, which is a concrete product that has an appearance similar to a very smooth face stone. And then also this is an example of the ethos, which has what the architect described as a stucco finish that would be painted. And so it's a very smooth surface, if one could imagine that. They're also proposing the retaining wall as part of the site development plan, but to give you an idea, some of the materials that will be used on site. And then the architect is also asking approval for either a dark bronze or a black aluminum storefront, and asking for that flexibility as they make final decisions on fixtures and other elements of the project. So I apologize, this photo came out a little bit blurry now that I'm seeing it on my slide, so hopefully that's good for everybody else. But this is an example of the ethos, the stucco coating product. And then also there was a block of the natural limestone, which the architect described as kind of a looter's buff color. Pretty common language if you're in construction in Central Texas, but not something that we see specifically very frequently here at Harc. And then also a kind of a segment of that cast stone or that concrete product that would have a very smooth finish. And then the black aluminum and dark bronze aluminum storefront examples of how that color would be. And so last meeting, staff provided some examples of what not the same materials, but what similar materials could look like in our downtown. And so on the left, we see our courthouse, which I've since been informed, I think I mentioned some cast stone details. I've since been informed and corrected that those are terracotta. So I get to learn something new every day in my job, which is one of the things I love about it. But we can see the brick that's used in the courthouse doesn't have a lot of color variation, but it does have a lot of variation in how the brick is used and how the brick was laid. And so we see some reveals there, and we see some detailing over the windows and then between the windows on the second and third floor. And then on the right, we see the Strongberg Hoffman building, which is for quite some time had a stucco finish. And then to the right of that, the Farmer State Bank building, which has a smooth faced stone for that building facade. And so to move to the kind of 3D drawings, this gives you a sense of what the building could look like from across the street. This is along the Austin Avenue facade. This is from the West 5th Street view. And then this is a view sort of across the parking lot from approximately kind of the end of the driveway location over on 4th, at the driveway on 4th Street. And then just for some current context, staff took some photos to show the lot is currently vacant. It does have kind of a variety of properties around it. It does have a tall commercial property to the south, but it also has residential properties directly to the east that share the same block. And then photo on the left is the parking lot directly across Austin Avenue. And then the photo on the right is from next to the Tamira building, also looking at where those residential properties are. And that's proposed to be the driveway that's there is on this property, but is shared by those residential properties. And so just to recap, we did show where some of the newer building heights are, as well as some of the older building heights, just to give a comparison. This building is proposed to be 49.5 feet tall. It's very tippy top. And so other buildings in the downtown recently approved include 48 feet high, also 44 feet high. The Justice Center, the height varies because the site around the building slopes quite a bit, so it's between 31 and 63 feet. The Tamira building directly to the south was approved at 51 feet in total, and then the Masonic Lodge about 44 feet to the parapet, and that's really about the tallest historic structure that we have in the downtown, besides the courthouse. And so when staff reviewed the application, we found that it complied or partially complied with the applicable requirements. In 2 cases, the approval criteria were not applicable, and that's because signage is not being proposed at this time. And then also this is not a property with a historic structure. And so to recap the public notification, 3 signs were posted on the property for the public hearing on October 8th. 1 comment was received opposed to the project, and that was received in writing. It was read in the meeting on October 8th. 1 comment in favor was made during the public hearing on October 8th. And since that meeting on the 8th, staff has received no additional comments. So we have no additional comments to read or to report. And so staff is recommending approval of the request. In the last meeting and in the staff report, staff had made a recommendation of approval with conditions. Those conditions were that the windows be consistently designed, and then also the Harc commissioners be provided with more clear, better examples of the materials. And so those 2 things being accomplished, staff's conditions have been satisfied, and that's why we are recommending approval. And so as you make your motion, commissioners, as usual, to approve is presented by the applicant, to deny is presented by the applicant, to approve with conditions. And if there are conditions, if y'all could be clear about those so that staff make sure we get that recorded correctly. And then if you find a need to postpone, we would need to have this back no later than the next regular meeting on November 12th, because Harc has to make a decision on applications within 35 days of a public hearing. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions. The applicant, who is also the architect for the project, is also here. And so they might wish to also address the commission.
Thank you, Britton. Whitney, I know that you're here with us this evening again. Is there anything that you would like to clarify or comment on before we move to questions or comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, at this time, I don't actually have anything to add. Britton recapped our summary well, and I hope everybody had an opportunity to view the samples that were provided, and hopefully they were able to meet with your satisfaction. So I welcome the commission's responses.
Okay, thank you, Whitney. Okay, commissioners, what questions or comments do we have for either staff or for the applicant? Carolee, I see that you're unmuted. Did you have a question? No, okay. All right, so I have a couple questions. So I did go over and look at the materials, and thank you for providing those, Whitney. Those were very helpful. And Britton, if you could go back to that slide. Thank you. So in looking at the materials in the planning office and picking them up and holding them, in my opinion, there is a significant difference between the cast stone and the natural limestone. And I know that this is something that was brought up at our last meeting. And I would not be okay with approving either or of those materials. One is a synthetic material in cast stone that is reading very flat, in my opinion. And then the other, the cut stone, the natural limestone, is reading with much more texture and dimension. And I think coupled with the stucco, I would have concerns about the lack of dimension on the building if we were to allow a cast stone. And so that is a concern of mine that I think we need to address tonight. There is a difference in the black versus the dark bronze windows. I'm less wedded to a decision on that tonight because I think that is a decision that it's not going to change necessarily the overall look of the building, just a color change. So I would be okay with that discussion being left to the applicant. But I think the cast stone versus the cut stone, there is too much of a significant difference in those 2 materials for me to do an approval without conditions there. So I don't know if there's any comment that you want to make on those, Whitney or staff. And then I see Carolee, let's let them
Okay.
respond and then
Well,
go ahead.
Amanda, the thing is, I would like to hear this in their response. And that is, what is the role of Harc in approving one of the materials or the other? Do we have that leeway?
So Britton, do you want to answer that in behalf of staff?
Sure. So Harc has the request is for the approval of both materials in terms of the stone and also in terms of the aluminum storefront color. If Harc were to choose to approve with conditions and wanted to make that approval conditional that the limestone, I'm giving an example just to illustrate, but if Harc wanted to approve with conditions that the condition was that only the proposed natural limestone were used and the cast stone were not approved, staff would just ask that you kind of state that clearly in your motion. And so that's where, that's the difference between approval as presented by the applicant and approval with conditions. Kind of might make that distinction. The applicant has asked for both. If Harc would like to only approve one of the options, then we would just need that made in the motion. And then also we would have to have a majority vote to approve that motion, if that makes sense and answers the question.
Carolee, does that answer your question?
Well, I guess what I'm really asking is there a place in the guidelines that, you know, states, well, you should choose this over that, or either is fine, or that's what I'm really looking for, is guidance from the guidelines.
The guidelines do talk about materials. And so this is infill construction in area 2 of the downtown, which is chapter 13 in our guidelines specifically. And the sections of chapter 13 that I think address the materials are 13.8, 13.9, and 13.10. And then roof materials are in 13.11. So that's probably not what we're discussing at this point. And so out of those three, we can get into a discussion about those. The design guidelines do not give guidance to Harc on when to approve kind of two options presented or kind of an either or situation. They more give guidance on the materials that are used just generally in the downtown overlay district and in this chapter in area 2. So if Harc wants to kind of go through those guidelines and talk through what that looks like and make some comparisons, staff is certainly here to support that discussion. That could be kind of an in-depth discussion. So if you'll want to have that now, we can do that now. Or if you'll want to have some discussion and then kind of turn to those specifics, I'd be happy to do that too.
So do the guidelines support either one? I'm not asking if it supports both, but does it support using cast stone as a material? I'm sure it supports using natural limestone.
So I'm going to read from 13.8, and bullet point 2 says new materials should appear similar in character to those used traditionally. For example, stucco, cast stone, and concrete should be detailed to provide a human scale. And so that's where there is a particular call out for a cast stone material. And cast stone does appear, our public library has some cast stone on the facade, and that's the one that I can most immediately think of. I want to say that our new city council chambers and municipal court building might also have some cast stone elements, or the new city hall. And then the 13.9 says a simple material finish is encouraged for a large expansive wall plate. That kind of talks specifically about not using highly reflective or reflected or mirrored materials. And then 13.10 says traditional building materials such as wood, brick, and stone are encouraged. And then new materials that are similar in character to traditional ones may be considered. And then alternative materials should have a proven durability in similar locations in this climate.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to give Whitney the opportunity to respond to my, concerns, probably too large of a word there, but it's really the lack of dimension that I'm seeing when I hold the cast stone next to the stucco. You're getting a completely flat finish. So
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Whitney responding. And so this is where showing a small sample of a material is very difficult to get a clear understanding of what an overall wall plane might be representative. Britton, would you mind going back to the examples that you showed of the building that does have yes, thank you, the Farmer State Bank building on the right side of this is a good example of ways where one small sample of the stone represented on this building does not give a clear representation of the variation available within materials. And while yes, we are presenting a monochromatic color scheme, we are not it's hard to represent a variation within materials that is available to be represented. So it is difficult. And I want to make sure that, Madam Chair, that when y'all did view the materials presented, that y'all were viewing the side that is the cut surface and not the rough face of the stone, because if that were the case, then yes, I would agree that there was a high variation between dimensionality of the two. But we are actually using a cut stone and a cast stone product, and I'm using the Farmer State Bank building as an understanding of the variation that can be achieved with either product. The natural product will inherently have very slight variations in tonal value. You still get a monochromatic overall look, but you will have some variation in the coloration of the stones themselves. We can achieve the exact same look with a cast stone product. And really the only primary difference is a very slight textural difference in the surface itself, but otherwise the two products, cast stone is meant to highly mimic a cut stone product, and it is done so specifically for applications where cost are a consideration that this project could encounter at a future date. So that's why we had requested the approval of both materials, because they inherently appear and render the same, knowing that we have the ability to have some slight tonal variations. And if the commission were to approve the cast stone, it could be made conditional such that slight variations in tonal value are provided to provide depth and dimension throughout the elevation. If that is an appropriate recommendation of the group, we would be happy to entertain that as part of the motion.
okay, thank you, Whitney. So for clarification, the building that is here, the Farmer State building, the museum, is cut stone. It is not cast stone, correct?
I can't speak to that directly. I have not put my hands on that building. I am going to make a pretty safe assumption, though, that that is a cut stone building.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Okay. So again, a natural cut stone versus a synthetic cast stone.
Correct. However, the synthetic can be colored in whatever variation we choose. And so if a variation in tonal values is required to meet the approval of a cast stone product, we can achieve that.
Okay. And just for verification, Britton, the sample picture, you have them all turned out the way that we were looking at them, because there was writing on the back. Just wanted to make sure that we were looking at the correct side. You had written on the back of them, Whitney, so.
The writing was not on the back. The writing was on the front face that you were supposed to be reviewing.
The writing was on the front.
On the stone, yes. I put the stickers and writing on the face.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
That's why I realized in the picture Britton had posted that picture is actually showing the rough side of the stone, which did concern me that maybe y'all were viewing the incorrect sides of the material.
Okay, yeah, I looked at both sides of I looked at both sides of the material. I still stand by. I think there's a significant difference in the dimension of the natural stone versus the cast stone. Similar to the cast stone, similar to me, is maybe like a countertop completely smooth surface versus the dimension in the stone. Okay.
Well, if I wouldn't mind interjecting, you will actually achieve a very smooth surface with a cut stone product. So if you're looking for a level of dimension, wow, that didn't come out right. Dimensionality that you're seeing on the opposite side of the stone, that is actually not what we are requesting approval on. So I would need some clarification if that is the surface that you would be recommending approval for versus the cut very smooth side on the opposite side of the stone that has the writing on it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Yes.
Okay. What other questions do we have from other commissioners? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and open the, not hearing anything, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Is anyone signed up to speak tonight, Myrna or Nat?
I don't have anyone.
Okay.
I'm not showing anyone in the chat space, nor am I seeing anyone on the Q&A. We do have some folks that are joining us, and they can use their raise their hand function. They can also identify themselves by, I do see a raised hand. We have, looks like Lawrence Romero is here tonight. Madam Chair, he has his hand raised.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Romero. If you'd like to go ahead and make your comment now.
Hi, let's see. Can you all hear me?
We can.
Okay. So I stopped by. I think I saw the rough side of that. So it is going to be flat, like you said. So then, and then the stucco portion of that has the styrofoam backing on it. So I got confused there, I think. So it would be a flat portion that we're looking at, and not the rough side that we're seeing in the picture. Is that correct? Is that what?
This is Whitney. Yes, sir. That would be correct.
Okay.
The smooth surface.
Okay. So so then I understand that better now. Okay. So I just wanted to say, I think it's a good project. I can understand now better. I thought we were going to have the rougher side on that, so then it would kind of correlate with what we have in this old town. But I still think it's a good project, and so I hope the commission can see to move forward. But I also think that Ms. Nunn, I think that I hope that she really does really good, and I know that she's an architect, so I hope that you listen to what she has to say on that, because I really have confidence in what she's pushing for on this. And so, but I do think it's a really good project to go into that space there. So I thank you for that. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. Okay. Anyone else raise their hand or on the phone to speak?
Yes, ma'am. I do have Sean Hood has raised his hand to speak, and I'm going to ask Sean to unmute his microphone now.
Hi, Mr. Hood.
Hey, how are you guys? Can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead with your comment, please.
I'm a little late to the party. I've just been reviewing this the last few days, so I missed the last reading. And my question was, is the project proposed to use a cultured stone or a synthetic stone or a real milled limestone?
Thank you very much, Mr. Hood. We are actually asking for approval of both, so that my client can have an opportunity to evaluate cost saving measures at a future date, as the project is still in the design and cost evaluation phases. The two products that we have requested, one being a cast concrete product that is intended to mimic a cut stone product, and the other product being a natural cut limestone product, which both have very similar characteristics, colorations, and surface textures.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. I do like the proposed project. I do have a very strong opinion that natural limestone would be the preferred choice. I think that the building location, placement, size, and scale is going to be a permanent addition to downtown Georgetown, and cost-saving measures to go to a cultured stone or a synthetic stone when we have the largest limestone quarries in our county would be doing our local history a disservice. So I would strongly recommend the consideration of limestone. Ironically, the branch in Round Rock is a beautiful limestone building. So that's my opinion. I do like the project. I hope that the commission sees to move forward with it, but I would really like to see it move forward with limestone.
Thank you, Mr. Hood. Appreciate your comment.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Madam Chair, I don't see anyone else with a hand raised, and I don't see anyone in the chat space, and the Q&A is still empty. So I don't see anybody else sign up to speak unless there are others that are on the line which would like to raise their hand or unmute their microphone.
Okay, thank you, Nat. Okay, not hearing anyone, not seeing anyone. I'm going to close the public hearing. Okay. Commissioners, we have a decision to make. What other comments or questions do we have for either the applicant or staff?
Hi, this is Commissioner Hyde. I'm losing my voice. Can you once more go back to the materials slide? I'm sorry, but I didn't understand at the end. All of a sudden, it seemed like we were looking at the wrong sides of them. So can you just explain, is the natural limestone in this picture the actual face that we would be looking at of the building? Or an example of the material that we would be looking at if you were to use limestone?
That is actually the other side of that.
That's the other side.
Yes.
So the side, the reverse side is just smoother?
Yes, ma'am. It is a very smooth cut limestone, which is representative in the bank building that we were discussing and showing earlier.
Okay. And Amanda, you looked at both sides of those and you still felt that the smooth side was quite different than the cast stone, or different enough in that amount?
Yes, I did look at both. I picked them up and looked at both. My concern would be using a synthetic product on a project of this size. I think, a natural product, and, again, it's reminiscent all over our square and in Georgetown and in other places. The natural limestone would be, my preference due to dimension, and I think it's more representational of what we see currently.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I was just a little confused about that.
Thank you, Terry. Okay. Anyone else? Art, anything you'd like to add tonight?
Thank you for asking. But the only thing that I would have to say is, with regards to an earlier question, it is within the commission's purview as to the conditions of approving one or the other, as opposed to approving two materials.
Art, I can have Britton verify this again, but yes, based on what was said earlier, that would be an approval with conditions, and we would specify those conditions.
Right. Thank you.
Catherine, anything you'd like to add tonight? Unmute yourself, please. You're muted.
I thought I had unmuted myself. My apologies. I went back and reread the design guidelines in that section that Britton was reading before, and it does seem to really emphasize natural or traditional building materials in all three parts, 0.8, 0.9, and 0.10 of 13. So that would be my only comment.
Thank you, Catherine. Carolee, anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, well, I just say that, synthetic materials aren't always bad. Definitely. I would question, I wouldn't question it. I would just state that part of the thing about a natural material is you do get natural color differentiations. And that does, if you're going to use the smooth side of the limestone, you get natural color differentiations, and it looks natural. But whereas with like cast stone, it's really tough, I think, in my opinion, to get natural color differentiations because it's not natural. So that would be, you know, from a drive-by, you may not be able to tell the textural difference, but you'll certainly see the color difference.
Thank you, Carolee. I was muted. Okay, and I know, Faustine, you haven't been with us for the last 2 presentations. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you for asking.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, would you mind if I
Yes.
make one more comment?
Yes, of course, Whitney.
Thank you. I know that cast stone does get a bad rap. And Carolee, I appreciate your support of an alternate material. I would like to remind or point out to the commission that cast stone is an acceptable product to be utilized within this application. And while yes, the one sample that we have does represent as a single color variation, multiple color variations can be achieved, and that is through the specification process that I write as part of the design guidelines for the project. So please note, Commission, that that can be achieved, and that we would seek to achieve that if that product was approved.
Thank you, Whitney. Okay, the last thing I wanted to bring up is we have not discussed the storefront. Does anyone have any, as I stated, I have a preference, but I'm not wedded to one or the other. Does anyone else have a strong opinion about the windows on this project?
Well, I hate to always be the one talking or often talking. I'm not, but you know, ideally it would be black because black mimics steel window design. I mean, what the bronze is so modern architectural for the most part, whereas the black is more like the steel that windows used to be made from, even though the section's different. So if there wasn't a big cost difference, I would hope it would be black.
Thank you, Carolee. For the record, I concur with the black. Any other comments on the windows? Okay, not hearing any. Any other comments that we would like to make about this project before I entertain a motion? Okay, I will entertain a motion. Thank you, Britton. Okay.
All right, then I'll make a motion. This is Carolee. Is that what you're waiting on, Amanda?
That's what I'm waiting on. Thank you. You know, I can't make an emotion as the chair, so.
I thought, wow, it's awfully quiet. Okay, I would like to make the motion that we approve with natural limestone and the other materials with the option of the color for the windows.
Okay, so for clarification, you are making a motion to approve with conditions that we use the natural limestone, but they have the option on the color of the windows. Is that your motion?
Yes.
Second, Morales.
Did you second that, Catherine?
I did.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you. Okay. All right, so we have a motion to approve with conditions that we use the natural cut stone, limestone, and that the applicant has the option on the window color. Britton, is there any other information that you need in that motion?
I'm clear on that motion. Thank you so much, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Let's take a vote. Commissioner Parr, approve. Commissioner Curry,
Abstain.
Commissioner Morales,
Approve.
Commissioner Browner,
Yes.
Commissioner Nunn,
Approve.
and Commissioner Hyde.
Approve.
Okay, thank you. That motion carries. Whitney, is there any other questions we can answer for you?
No, ma'am. I appreciate all the commissioners' responses on the project and feedback, and we appreciate the approval on the project this evening.
Thank you
Look
so
forward
much.
to moving on.
Thank you so much. And you're welcome to join for the rest of the discussion, but you may want to not hear about the updates from the commission.
I like y'all and all, but I'm going to go spend my night with my family.
Have a great evening. We'll
Thank
look
you.
forward to seeing the project.
Thank you. Thank you all.
All right. Okay, we're going to move on. We have item G, which is updates from our lovely staff. Is that Britton or Nat or Sophia tonight?
We'll be both. So we are really excited tonight to be able to introduce y'all to our design guidelines consultants. I hope everybody did their homework. I was doing other things, so I don't know if you did or not. No judgment here. But we have engaged Post Oak Preservation Solutions, and we have Ann McGlone and Ellis Mumford Russell here to get introduced to y'all tonight. Also, we've got a little bit of kind of interaction with them planned. We are really, really excited about this project. Not because the design guidelines are this kind of honors thing that isn't working for us. I think the commissioners are doing a great job even navigating some really refined elements of building design in our downtown. But it's been since 2012 that we got our design guidelines updated. And as y'all see, sometimes we've got new illumination technology with signage. We've got a little bit different requests than we used to get. And then materials are just always a question that needs great guidance in our design guidelines so that y'all can continue to do the work that you're doing on behalf of the city. And so Ann and Ellis, if y'all want to take it away, we're really looking forward to hearing from y'all.
Sure. Yeah, this is Ellis. I'm really grateful to be here with y'all. And okay, good. Ann just got back on. And so I'm here with my partner, Ann McGlone. So like Britton said, our plan tonight is to introduce you guys to us, run through just a quick overview of our process. And then I know some of you all filled out the survey that we sent out. We're going to talk about that a little bit more just to be sure we didn't miss anything. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to show you just a rough schedule. So give me 1 second. All right. So I've got here just a really rough schedule of what we're looking at for this refresh of the design guidelines. So I'll run that through quickly. So it's October, and so our task right now is to what we call become local, really get to know what's going on right now in Georgetown. So Ann and I have actually already spent some time in Georgetown, walking around, driving around, spending a lot of time with Britton and Nat, getting to know the lay of the land, taking hundreds of photos. And then we've been kind of digesting that information now that we're back home. We have also been conducting stakeholder meetings with various focus groups over the past couple of weeks. I think we still got a couple more of those to go, but that's been a really useful tool for us to hear from different types of people who've used the guidelines, who've interacted with them in different ways to get their understanding of them and of what's working and what's not and what's important to them about Georgetown. So that's October. That's our Let's Get to Know Georgetown. As we move into November, we will be performing some analysis of the neighborhood. So really dialing into the details of what is here in Georgetown between Old Town and downtown. What's the character defining features of Georgetown? What makes Georgetown, Georgetown? In December, there'll be another public meeting process where we will present our findings. So we'll say, this is what we see. This is the general character. Or characters, I should say, is more accurate because it's fairly diverse in Georgetown. So we'll present that and get confirmation that we've gotten the gist of things. From January to March, we'll just put our heads down and get to work using that information and confirmation of the existing conditions in Georgetown to begin to develop design guidelines that work for you. So we'll be kind of a little quieter on our end, digging into that work from January till March. In April, we will present our draft for review and comment with the very clear understanding that it is a draft and we'll have to make some revisions to that. So that's in April, and then our goal after we make our final set of revisions is to be done in May. Before we move on to some of the detailed discussion, do you guys have any questions I can answer for you about the process? Okay. All right, then I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to go through. So I sent out, or Britton through me sent out a survey, and I'm not going to read through every answer, but what I'm going to do is sort of summarize some of the responses that we got, and then just be sure we didn't miss anything in that. And we really value your candid input on this. Y'all are the folks that interact with the design guidelines more than anybody else. And so we want to ensure this is something that is functional and usable for you. So let's see, I will get started with, so one of our first questions is what excites you about the process? And there seemed to be a general consensus that we're looking forward to having the design guidelines be updated so that they are no longer outdated. We want them to be relevant and adaptable as things grow and change, and they can adjust to future expectations. When I asked about what might make you nervous about the update, there didn't seem to be too much concerns about this. One thing that was highlighted, however, is ensuring that we address the areas that need improvement without political interference. And that's certainly not our goal. Our goal is to take an objective approach to what needs improving from a best practices perspective, from knowing what good design guidelines are like and applying those principles to the Georgetown guidelines. When discussing what sets Georgetown apart and what you want to be sure is still here in 75 years, everyone said the character of Georgetown, and that's not a surprise, you're on Harc, but we said that the character of Georgetown, and specifically that it is inviting, it is diverse, there is a youthful character, a lot of new people moving into town, and that you have really good commercial occupancy. And I guess hammering down onto the sort of the diverse character of this, talking about different time periods of construction, a mix of new and old and different styles and sizes of houses and commercial buildings being key to the character. So before I move on to the really specific nitty-gritty, when we look at those first few questions, is there anything that we missed or anything that you want to emphasize to us? Okay, great. I'll just keep going then. And then my partner Anne will lead us with a few more discussion questions. So moving on, as part of this process, as I'm sure you know, City Council directed us to look at some very particular items to be sure that those are addressed appropriately in the guidelines. So I'll just go through those briefly. We have residential infill, so new construction, consistent feedback from y'all that residential infill should be appropriate, it should fit, it should keep the feeling and be in harmony with the neighborhoods. When we talk about residential additions and alterations, there was discussion of mass and scale, just being sure that that's in keeping, but allowing maybe some flexibility as needed, to adapt to modern needs. With demolitions, there's some concern about demolition by neglect. And some concern that I know we've heard this from a few other folks too, that if a high priority building is demolished, what is the requirements for documentation or salvage or things like that. And then also about demolitions, the statement that just because it's old doesn't mean it's important. So we need to have really clear priorities. We asked about residential fences, pretty clear consensus on that. They should be low, consistent, but that we also need to keep in mind safety considerations with like swimming pools and things like that. Getting to commercial, discussion about commercial infill, I should say, getting the height, mass, and scale should be very, it needs to be very clear in the guidelines. We need to be sure that when you all are looking at a commercial infill project like the one you are looking at today, you have very clear guidance about what is appropriate and what's not. Yeah, and just saying that it needs to be in keeping, but modern is okay too. We just have to find that where can we allow some gray areas while still allowing enough clear guidance for y'all. Commercial alterations and additions, very similar to the infill, just having very clear guidelines about design, mass, scale, and height. For commercial demolitions, similar things to the residential. If it's a high priority building, what are the requirements for documentation or salvage? And then also considering just because it's old doesn't mean it's important. For signage, sort of two things that came up in that topic. One, allowing for kind of simple signage that's compatible with the district. And there were also a few comments about lighting. So talking about not lighting that's overly bright or distracting, while also still ensuring that our design guidelines are updated enough to address the new technology in signage and the new demands that people might have. And finally, for materials and replacement materials, and this we had a lot of discussion about materials in your first case here. So figuring out what is the best material for replacement, when is an in-kind material appropriate and when is it not, keeping in mind cost, keeping in mind green or sustainable solutions that might have a good shelf life, keeping in mind newer technologies, newer materials that can mimic the historic appearance. And so we need to examine those essentially based on the priority of the building and the style and the particular material. So, you know, we plan on digging in pretty deep on materials. Okay, so that's all of the specific little council directed items. Any more comments on any of those? Anything that we missed?
So Ellis, I just have a comment. This is Amanda. I just have a comment on, you were speaking about demo and the archival process. And you said if you're demoing a high priority project. So hopefully we're not doing very many of those.
Yeah.
God help us all if we are. But those are typically low or medium. And I just want to be sure that there's still valuable salvage options in those properties as well. It's not just with a high priority property.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that clarification. Absolutely. Okay. And then one last question for me, and then Anne's going to take it away. The last question that I sent in the survey was, you know, what big things do we need to keep in mind from you all? What's your advice for us? There was an emphasis that we understand the history, that the guidelines take into consideration the unique character of Georgetown, which is very diverse. It is quite different. And rest assured, we don't plan on doing a cookie cutter guidelines. We're really digging into exactly what Georgetown is. A lot of emphasis here in just having consistency and clear guidance so that it becomes a really usable document. So that's my summary of the feedback that I got from you all. This, of course, is not the only time that we're going to get feedback. If you come up with a thought, you can send us an email, or, you know, we're going to have a few other public meetings to discuss. I'm going to let my partner Anne introduce herself, and she's got another question or two for you. Take it away.
Unmute myself there. Hi, I'm Anne, and I'm going to see if I can maybe get you to talk a little bit more and tell us what you're thinking. What we're really trying to do with the design guidelines is not only